All right, 2.2, add real numbers. So you might be thinking, I know how to add. I've done adding since I was in kindergarten or something like that. But the difference in what we're going to be doing with these is that we are adding negative and positive numbers together. So something like -4 plus 13 is what we're going to be doing now. I'm going to also teach you how to do it of what I think is easier to rewrite the problem so that it looks a little bit different. That I think just makes it easier to understand. But that's really the big difference, is that we're now doing negative and positive number adding, which you probably did with Ms. Holloway a little bit as well. But anyways, it's a section, so we cover it. So some just rules of addition. To add, no, this is rule 1. To add two numbers with the same sign, add their absolute values, the sum has the same sign as the numbers added. So what are we talking about here? An example of this would be like if we had 6 plus 12. Those have the same sign, they're both positive, so we would just add their two numbers together, and because both numbers were positive, it's going to be positive. So 6 plus 12 is going to be 18. But if I had -5 plus -4. Okay, I'm adding these two numbers together, but since they are both negative numbers, my answer is going to be negative, and I just need to add the numbers together and put a negative sign on it. That is going to be -9. So because both were negative, the answer has to be negative. When the other one both were positive, the answer is going to be positive. So this is for the same sign, okay? The next rule is for when they have different signs. So to add two numbers together, or to add two numbers with different signs. So the key here is that the signs are going to be different, meaning one's going to be positive, one's going to be negative. Subtract the lesser absolute value from the greater absolute value. The sum has the same sign as the number with the greater absolute value. So, meaning if I had something like -12 plus 6, what they would tell you to do is to subtract, ignore the sign, okay, ignore the negative sign, subtract the 6 from the 12, okay, so 12 minus 6 would be 6, and because 12 is the bigger number, the sign that's on 12 goes with it. Okay, so that would just be -6. And then another one, if we had something like 18 plus -3, we subtract the smaller number from the bigger number. So 18 minus 3 is going to be 15, and then we put the sign of the bigger number. Since 18 is the bigger number, then it's going to be positive, so this one is going to be +15. So the next thing I'm going to put in your notes just so that you've seen it before, but I'm not going to make you tell me their properties of addition. I'm not going to make you tell me oh, in this problem I used this property. Okay, these are more just a FYI because you will see them again when you go farther in math, but right now I just want you to have kind of an intro to them. So properties of addition. So the first one is the commutative property. And this just says that A plus B is equal to B plus A. So all that's telling you is that you can change the order and add them together and they're going to be the same. So if I add 2 plus 3 and I add 3 plus 2, they're going to give me 5 no matter which way I look at it, is all that that's telling you. Two, the associative property. This one says that in parentheses A plus B, close the parentheses outside of it, plus C is equal to A plus, in parentheses, B plus C. So the only reason that this one is written like this is because PEMDAS, we always do what's in the parentheses first. It's saying if you're adding everything, it doesn't matter which two things you add first. It is always going to end up being the same answer for addition. Three, the identity property. Says that A plus 0 is equal to 0 plus A. So in a sense, that kind of looks like number 1, okay? But this is just equal to A. So that's just telling you that if you add 0 to anything, it's equal to itself. And lastly, we have the inverse property, which says that A plus negative A is equal to negative A plus A, which would be equal to 0. So it's saying if you add a number and its opposite, okay, inverse would be like it's an opposite, then it's equal to 0. So negative 3 plus 3 is going to be, 0. So like I said, those are more so just so that you've seen them, because when you go farther in math, like in Algebra 2, one of the first things I do that we cover is you have to work a math problem and you have to explain why you do each step. So that's where these will come in handy. Just before we do examples, one other way that we can do adding of negative numbers and positive numbers is by simply putting the points on the number line like we did in the last section, and then just counting how many like numbers are between it. So I will show that way to you, but that's the long way, so I would rather you just get used to doing it like these two rules here. But if you feel like that either you like the number line better or it's easier, you see it better, if you're a visual person, then completely okay to do it that way as well. So the problems say to use a number line to find the sum, but I'm okay if you don't use the number line. So some examples. Number 4, -1 plus 6. So if we were to do this with a number line like this problem says, I would just put a few something like that on there. So we start at -1. Okay, so we're going to put a dot at -1. And then we add 6 to it. Okay, so we just count over from the dot. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the answer to this would be 5 because that's 6 points away from -1. Now, just curious, did y'all know that that was going to be 5 before we put it on the number line? Okay, I figured so. So, if you're content, I'm not going to do any more on the number line, but that's how you would do it. You plot the first number, and then you move in the direction that it says from there. I'm going to be honest, I don't think I ever did it with a number line, so that was like new when I saw it that way. I was like, oh, it's an interesting way to think about it. Like never really thought of it that way before. Number 6 is 5 plus -10. So I will just tell you, I would always think about this as 5 minus 10 when I see this. I'm not going to think about plus and negative. I think that gets really confusing. So if you want to leave it the way it is up here, then we can look at it like this method here of rule number 2 of we have two numbers, they have different signs, so we have one positive and one negative. So we're going to subtract the smaller absolute value of the number. So we're going to subtract the smaller number from the bigger number, and then the sign is going to be the number that's, or the, wow, words. The sign is going to be the one that's on the bigger number. Okay, so if we didn't do it this way, okay, what is my bigger number here? 10. So I'm going to say 10 minus 5, because I'm subtracting the smaller number, which is what? 5. And then I have the negative sign is on the 10, which is the bigger number, so it's going to be -5. Okay. Now, did you already know that 5 minus or plus a -10 was -5? Okay. So I just wanted you to see that other way to think about it. I, to be honest, just think it's probably easier just to you just kind of know it, and if you've done these before, it's, you know, not a new concept, but so -8 plus -2. So these technically have the same sign on them. Okay, they're both negative. So I would have -8 minus 2, which would be what?
6.
So these both have the same sign. So that means I'm going to add the numbers together and then keep the sign. So what is 8 plus 2?
10.
10. Yeah, so it'll be -10. Yep. So this would be like rule number 1. that said if they have the same sign, we add the two numbers together, and then we take the sign of the number of like whatever it was. So, whoa, come back. Number 10, 6 plus negative 12. So this would be, again, we can ignore the plus sign in the middle. We can just say 6 minus 12. So what would that be? Yep, negative 6. So always remember when they have opposite signs, the answer has the sign of the biggest number. If they have the same sign, it's whatever the sign was that you started with. Okay? All right, number 12. So these ones are going to be a little bit different. It's the same. Well, these ones don't actually say to use the number line. These ones just say to find the sum. But some of these ones, or if not all of these ones, are decimals or fractions. We're just going to do the decimal ones, probably not the fraction ones, just because the fraction ones are a little bit crazy. But with 12, I have negative 2.4 plus 3.9. So with one like this, okay, I would say that just looking at it, you may not know what the answer is. But if you remember how to do like the stacked addition and subtraction, I would do it that way. So in this case, I would subtract the smaller number from the bigger number. So the way I'm going to write this is 3.9 minus 2.4 like this. So then I'm doing 9 minus 4 would be what? 5. Don't forget the decimal point there. And then 3 minus 2 would be 1. Because 3.9 was the bigger number and it was positive, my answer is positive. So that would be my answer to that problem. Okay, if the signs had been switched, I would have set it up the same way, but then it would have been negative. So, let's see. 14. 4.3 plus negative 10.2. So how do you think I should set this one up? Huh? Stacked again. So which number should I do on top?
10.
Okay, so 10.2. And then on the bottom, I'll have the 4.3. And I'm going to put the minus sign here, okay, because they're opposite. So I'm going to subtract the smaller from the bigger. So what do I get here?
You have to subtract 1 from the 10.
So this is going to become 9. You can move your 1 over. So 12 minus 3 would be 9. Bring down the decimal, and then we have 9 minus 4 is 5. So I have 5.9, but which number over here was bigger?
10.
So this one is negative, so my answer needs to be what? Yep, negative 5.9. All right, let's see. 16. Negative 6.5 plus negative 7.1. So what do you notice about this one?
They're both negative.
Both are negative, so that means I need to do what with the numbers?
Make it positive, like add.
Okay, yep, add. So I'm going to add them together, and then what is my final answer going to be, positive or negative? If they're both the same, what do we do about the sign? You said keep it? Yep. So we're going to still stack them, and we're just going to add instead of subtract this time. And we know that our final answer is going to be negative because both numbers were negative initially. So we'll have, it doesn't matter which one you do on top, but I was about to say 6.1. 7.1 plus 6.5. So we just add, so 1 plus 5, we've got 6. Bring down our decimal. 7 plus 6 is 13. So I have 13.6, but we said both numbers were negative, so it's going to be negative. So our answer is negative 13.6. Any questions about that type at the moment? We're good. All right, so the next thing, the rest of them are all just fractions, and they're like weird fractions. So I'm just going to skip those ones for now. Still finding the sum, but it's adding another number into the equation. So rather than it just being 2 numbers, it's adding 3 numbers together. Okay. So let's see, 32. Negative 13 plus 5 plus negative 7. So my recommendation with ones like these is just work your way across left to right. Don't try to like be like, oh, well, negative 13 and negative 7 have the same sign, so I'm going to combine those first. Like, just work left to right. It'll just be easier. So negative 13 plus 5, we're just going to completely ignore the minus 7 for the moment. Negative 13 plus 5 would be what? Well, what's true about their signs, first of all? What's true about the sign of those two numbers?
One is negative.
One's negative and one is positive. So that means what? Subtract the lesser from the bigger. So that would mean 13 minus 5 is what?
8.
8, and then we put the sign of the bigger number. So what would it be? Negative 8. And then I'm just going to copy the rest of this down. So plus negative 7. So now what's true about these two? They have the same sign, so what do I need to do? Add. Add and keep the sign. So what would that one be?
Negative 15.
Negative 15. Beautiful. Not too bad, right? It's just getting used to the patterns of them. All right, 34. Oh, they're giving us some decimals in this one. 0.47 plus negative 1.8 plus negative 3.8. Now, for this one, I might retract my previous statement about always going left to right, okay? Because what do you notice about the last two numbers in this? What do you notice about those two numbers? They're both negative, and they both kind of look similar, right? They both just have the one decimal place, but this one has 2. So I think in this case, I'm actually going to start with those two, okay, because it doesn't matter. Order of operations says that adding and subtracting occurs at the same time. Typically, we go left to right, but I also like to make life a little bit easier. So these have the same sign, so what does that mean that I do? Add. Add and keep the sign. So we're going to have 1.8 plus 3.8, and we know that our answer is going to be negative, so I'm going to go ahead and put a negative sign down here. So 8 plus 8 is 16, so I put the 6 down and I carry the 1. Make sure we bring the decimal point down. So then I have 3 plus 1 plus 1, which is going to be 5. So this is negative 5.6, okay? So I'm going to then bring down this 0.47. So I have 0.47 plus negative 5.6. Now what? What's true about those two numbers?
One's negative, one's positive.
One's negative and one is positive. So what does that mean that I do? Yep. Subtract the smaller number from the bigger number. Okay, and then we keep the sign of the bigger number. So I'm going to have stacked up 5.6 minus 0.47. Okay, so the thing to remember with this is the decimal places have to line up when we're adding and subtracting. Because 5.6 doesn't have anything after it, I can just put a 0 there as a placeholder because I have to have something above the 7 there. So how would I proceed with this now?
I wanna get the 5, take one away from it to add to the 0.
So I'm going to take it away from the one closest to it.
Okay.
So I'm going to take it away from here and make this a 5. So I have 10 minus 7 is 3. 5 minus 4.
1.
Then bring down your decimal place. And then 5 minus, we can put a little 0 placeholder there if we want, or you can just know there's nothing there. So the 5 comes down. Now, the bigger number is 5.6, so that means that we had a negative sign on it, so it's going to be negative 5.13 for that one. So, any questions about those ones? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and give you some of those to do tomorrow. We're going to add in another step where they give you a value for x and we plug it in but do the same thing from there. So it'll be like x plus 4 minus 3. Basically, and it'll tell us that x is equal to 2, and then we'll solve it out like that. So it's just requiring us to plug in a number. So what I would like you to do is 3 through 17 odd, and also 33 and 35.